Hi everyone, welcome to the Electron Age. Today, as you see in front of you, we have a Sony Discman D88. This one is not working at the moment, unfortunately, but let's see if we can do something about that. So let's just see first of all what's wrong with it. I've already put the disc selector on the 12 centimeter CDs. We have the power plug connected. It's a 9 volts center negative. That's very important. I have my headphones connected, so if there's any sound we should hear it. So I've already tested this Discman. Sadly it doesn't work, and first of all, if you want to do a repair like this yourself, there's a few indications. The disk doesn't stop running, and the most important indication actually is, let's first of all let's try some things. Nothing. We hit pause, there's nothing, and we hit stop and it stops. The most important indication is the laser pickup. As you can see, it's way in the exterior, way on the outside of the CD. Usually the disk pickup starts on the inside. That's where the table of content is on the CD, and that's where it should be. This one hasn't moved because as you saw when I put the disc in, it was in this position, and even if it stayed in this position, let's say you unplugged the power in a previous session, it should automatically return to the original position. So that's a fairly common thing that goes wrong with these Discmans. Which is just a small plastic gear, which I will show you when we get to it. The second thing that's wrong with it apparently is that the LCD screen does not work. I don't know what I can do about that, but I will try at least. Let's just see when we get to the inside. As you can see, even without the disc in, it still tries to spin, but in vain. So let's get on with it, shall we? I've done this repair before, so let's just say I've done it once. I will start with this. Not sure if this is gonna come out right now, or maybe I should disassemble it further. It's been a while since I've done this. Okay, let's just leave it for the moment. Let's start with, these are gonna go, this one and this one. Let's just take all of them. So these screws are all the same length so far, so it's okay to put them together. And you should always pay attention when taking off the screws. If they are different sizes, different lengths, you should definitely remember where they came from, and put them separately, or if you're new to this, you can just put a piece of paper, draw the device on it as you want, and you know, just leave this one here. This thing comes off together, so just leave them in place. It would be easier. And these are different size from the other ones, so it isn't really a problem. And there was one screw missing, unfortunately. I think that's those. This thing we should take it off, I guess, but I guess it could stay in place since this is just you know, plastic thing. Separate the dust to keep the dust from entering the device. There's also a screw here. And the back plate comes off. I'm feeling just a little bit of resistance, so it's better to take this off. So this comes off. We have this big copper sheet. I think this is because this does get a little bit hot when it's running, so I'm guessing that's for thermal reasons, let's just say. I'm gonna try to take this tape off, because we do need to get this a little bit out of the way. Just leave it at that. So if you want to take this board off, which we will have to, we need to take a few screws first. There's this one. I'm guessing there's more hidden under this copper thingy. So what I'm gonna do temporarily is just I'm gonna desolder these things just to be safe. No, this is connected to a ribbon cable, so I do not recommend doing this unless you are familiar in that, you know, you have fairly steady hands. Okay, let's just desolder this first. That's gonna give us more space to work. So that's done. Let's just take this to the side. There's some more glue under here, and it's off. So that's good. Let's try to take the rest of this black tape, and that's done. This is okay to be bent a little bit. It's copper, so there isn't, you know, much damage done to it. And we have some more black tape to take off, because we do need to, you know, take this board and put it to the side, and we need the flex cables to be able to flex. This is okay. I'm gonna replace this. I was going to replace this black tape anyway. Just, you know, you need to be very careful not to rip any of these delicate flex cables. So I'm just doing this by feel. You need to be able to do that as well. Of course, everything comes with practice. You're not gonna do it perfectly the first time. The important thing is to be just extra careful, not to rip anything, and you know, not to do any irreversible damage. We have these two more, I think, and we're done. This black tape is quite sticky after all these years. It's still working great, which is not really a good thing in this situation, but what can you do? So we need to be very delicate, especially with these this kind of ribbon cable. It's really thin, really small. Any crack in the plastic might, you know, if you put the too much force the wrong direction, it's gonna rip. So not impossible to repair it if it's broken, but you know, just too much work if you ask me. Oh shit, let's get this out of its socket, shall we? Okay, so I'm not sure if this really opens, but apparently you just put the cable, the flex cable in out. You just slid it in, and it's in, and I just took it out. So let's take the rest of the screws in here. Apparently there's only one, no, two. So we have this shiny one in the corner, and we have a black one right here to the side. They are different sized screws. And lastly, you don't see any more in here. Yeah, I think that's it. So let's see if we can take this off right now. I guess this side comes out first, because there is a little metallic thing which is poking a little bit to the outside from this side. And okay, yeah, I think we are good. From what I can see in here, there is one ribbon cable that we can take off to give us a little bit more space. This one sadly isn't is soldered to this board, and it goes to the laser pickup, I think, the laser assembly. So I'm not even sure if I'm gonna be able to take this one off. Let's try. Sorry guys if we're not getting the best shots. I still, need to do the task at hand. Okay, what we were gonna do, we're just gonna leave that in place. I'm not really sure if I can take it off, and what I'm worried about is getting it back, in place. So the important thing, we can actually access the gear that we need to take off and clean and lubricate, which is actually the problem with our unit, the problem with a lot of units. So the small little gear that's right there, that's the one we need to take off. To take it off, we just need to bend this little thing that pushes against it. We need to bend it a little bit out of place. Then we're gonna need to lubricate, clean it first with some alcohol, and lubricate it just a little bit with some lithium grease, and put it back inside in place. This is the motor that's going to this gear, which goes to this gear in turn. So let's try to do that if we can. Actually, to make things easier, I'm gonna go a little bit further with disassembly. I'm gonna take out the laser assembly itself, if it's possible. I'm sure I did this the last time, which was more than a year ago. I think it was more than 2 years ago, really. And there's a little last screw. Oops. There's some more black tape to take off, which will give us a little more freedom with our cables. So let's just see how we're gonna manage this, because I do not want to put any, unnecessary strain on these flex cables while I'm working on them. So it's just some more black tape holding us back. There's a lot of it in this player. This is kind of messy, but what can you do? Alright, let's take off this right now, I think. Yeah, there's a little thing to bend up right here. And that's it. I didn't actually need to bend that, I think, and this is grounded with this wire. So there we are. We have much more, access to the gear we want to change, even though it came with some difficulty. So let's just set this right on the board itself without putting too much strain on these flex cables. This one is quite long, so that's good. The first thing we need to do, I think, is to take off this small, I don't know if you can see, this small plastic catch ring or washer, plastic washer, and of course be very careful not to lose it in the process. That's off. Let's put it to the side. Up next we're gonna have to take this little gear, which is quite stuck in place. If you can see, if I try, for example, to move the motor is moving quite freely. You can feel the freedom. This one is jammed in place, and I suspect this one is also a little bit jammed in place. The problem with it actually, ironically, is the same, the thing that's supposed to keep it, running. But I don't know if the problem is, it wasn't run for such a long time. But I suspect, with any grease of any quality, after a long time, it is gonna be dehydrated a little bit, so it's gonna lose some of its greasing and lubricating properties. So nothing is forever. It's just, first I'm gonna put a little drop of alcohol on here, so just to loosen that grease up. What I have here is 90 degrees alcohol. Just gonna dip my Q-tip in it and apply it generously to this, clean a little bit of that old grease. I'm gonna put a little bit on this as well. Yeah, actually this was the problem, this little gear in the middle, because I was mistaken. I thought it was this one, but I think this is the gear that usually gets stuck on this model of Discman. I think that's gonna be good. The washer is off. Let's just try to move it in place just a little bit, and I can feel the resistance, and I'm gonna take it off while moving it, while twisting it a little bit, so you wouldn't put much pressure on it, because be careful not to break it. Thankfully I've seen replacement parts, this gear in particular, sold on eBay. I think it was replacement parts made by amateurs, by hobbyists like you and me, and that's off. So now let's give it some more cleaning. Yeah, if you can actually see, this was not the problem, even though I can feel a little bit of resistance. It could be in better shape, which I'm gonna do since we are in here. I'm gonna take this off, lubricate the whole thing, the whole assembly, until it runs freely, as free as possible at least. And yeah, this gear in the middle is the one that that gets really stuck in place. I'm sure if I put it back together right now it's gonna work, but let's just do a better job. As you saw, it was quite a little bit hard to get in here, and it's gonna be a little bit harder to to assemble it back, but that's the game. I'm just gonna clean a little bit the inside of this gear. I'm gonna actually drop it in here, immerse it a little bit in alcohol. I also have this used toothbrush, which I'm gonna try to clean the inside with it. Just drop it back in there for a second. Let's see what we can do about this one. Sorry about that. So apparently to take this off, this metallic plate is gonna need to get out of here. So as I can see, I think it was supposed to slide up, so let's just push it in just a little bit and slide. Try to slide it up. That's it. Perfect. Next, we have just a small screw in here, which holds the worm screw in place. I'm not sure if that's there is another screw which I didn't see. It's on the other side. So as you can see, I'm kind of doing this as I, figuring this out as I go, but I do have, some a little bit of experience in my pocket per se. Where did I put the other screw? So it's not as if I'm doing this out of the blue, or this isn't like my first device or my first device I trying to repair, so yeah, this thing does come off. Perfect. Then we take this whole worm screw just to clean it first. We're gonna put it back in place before lubricating it, or yeah, it could be actually lubricated, because as you can see, there's still traces of the previous lubricant that was in here. We're gonna clean that off too. So first of all, I'm gonna use some Kleenex to take off the majority of the old grease. That way I'm gonna clean it thoroughly with a little bit of alcohol. So I just hold it in the middle like this, or at one of the ends, and you turn it. You're gonna feel it like turning as if you are unscrewing it, and it's gonna turn all, like it's gonna get all of that grease out, as you can see. So it doesn't need to be like grease free, because we're gonna apply grease to it anyway, just like I love to get the surface clean of any traces of that old grease, so any new grease is not gonna get contaminated with that old stuff. Next, I'm gonna give this a little cleanup. I'm gonna drop it in here also. Add some more alcohol. Next, I'm gonna clean, this hole that the worm screw goes through. Just take off some of the grease. Give it a good wipe, inside and out. On the other side. There's also the other hole that holds this. It's way over here, I'm just gonna put a little amount of grease in it or on the tip before putting it back on the tip of the worm screw. And that's basically it. Just making sure everything is clean, everything is in good order. Alright, let me get the lithium grease bought on Amazon. A few years back also. I'm just gonna take one of these Q-tips. Or no, I'm just gonna use this to apply it, I guess. So the worm screw goes in this way. First of all, I think I'm gonna put the pieces in their place first. Just make sure the alcohol is gone. I'm gonna put this back in place right in here, and this one doesn't actually need lubrication inside, it does actually need to be connected to the worm gear for it to work, to do its job. So no grease inside of here, inside of this little plastic gear that goes on the worm. If it's too loose, I would suggest you put some glue, some Yoo-hoo or some super glue if you have it. Just a drop, less than a drop on the inside, and then you put the worm screw in. So now let's apply some grease to it, shall we? There's some fibers from the cotton. Try to take all the fibers out. They're only gonna cause problems, So I'm gonna apply a generous amount of grease here, but it doesn't need to be excessive neither, because a lot of grease is also gonna invite a lot of dust. I think that's about enough. It's more than enough, actually. I made sure to put a little bit on the tip, so that when I put it back in place, it's gonna have some lubrication. Put it in. Try not to. Okay, I'm gonna take this thing off again because I forgot that it actually it holds it in place, or at least it doesn't give you much place to put it in. Alright, now it's in place. The second thing we need to do now, we need to put back this place that actually rides on the worm screw in place. This is actually the ridge that rides on the worm screw, I think. No, it's this on the inside. With this, we're gonna need to give this a little bit of cleaning as well. Not that it needs to be clean, but just to take off the old grease. And these two balls, bearing balls, are what rides the worm screw. It's good enough. I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease on this. It's gonna be enough. Now let me just clean this grease off, and let's put this back in place. And it's finally in place, because it does have this little thing that pokes out, this little plastic thingy, which makes the task of getting it back in place quite the hassle. There it is. Okay, now everything's in place. We're gonna give the laser pickup a little clean at the end, you know, just because I did feel I've touched it a minute ago. Now we're gonna put this little gear back in place. I'm just gonna make sure first that that shaft is you know, grease free. Something like that. Make sure your hands are also grease free, you know. We're gonna need this a little bit more. That's good. Right, I just need to put this back in first to test it. This little metallic plate that holds it back in place. I think it was in this orientation, like this. It had like this sketch down. We just slide it in here. It should go in fairly easily. Yeah, and that's it. Now it does still feel like the same resistance, but that's, I think, normal, because it does have, you know, a big laser which is riding on it, so that's okay. Just gonna give it a few turns just to make sure that the grease spreads out instead of clumping in one place, even though it's gonna do it itself, you know, when it runs. but I just like to do this manually. That's the end. Let's take it back outside to see if it does return to its home position back when we started, later when we started. Just gonna take it all the way to the end. And then I'm also gonna drop just a small drop of grease right here and right here on this sliding arm. And that's it. We reached the end. Okay, next we have this little thing which was the problem in the first place. I'm just drying it out. And I'm gonna put it back in place, making sure that it's properly greased. So it goes in like this, doesn't it? Yeah. Alright, it runs much more freely, of course, now. Now let's put back the little plastic washer, even though, oops, almost thought I lost it. It's better to do this with your fingers to make sure not to lose it. Just gonna bend it a little bit back into position because I suspect that it also lost a little bit of its rigidity over the years, but let's just put it back in place. These washers are quite a hassle to get back on, but just make sure not to lose them. That's gonna be a bigger problem. That's all. So that's basically this laser assembly done. Just gonna put a little bit more of grease just right here behind this little gear and on the gears themselves, but especially between this, on this back side, a little bit here. That's good enough. Yeah, just a speck, really little speck of grease right here and right here. That's more than enough. I think that ideally it would be some kind of oil, but I do not have any kind of lubricant like oil, at least not one that's gonna work. So that's basically done. I'm gonna put this back on. So I did bend this little part a little bit to take it off, but I didn't need to, so I'm gonna bend it back straight in place and return it back to its position. So it just hooks on this little plastic part right here and it sits back in place. So these are the first two screws that I took off, which should go back in. Basically that's it. As for the laser assembly, as I'm in here, I'm just gonna, because I was hearing a little bit of scratching when adjusting the volume earlier on my headphones. I'm just gonna take this opportunity to just put a little bit of alcohol inside of this potentiometer and try to get it working as best as we can. At least this alcohol is gonna take off some, is gonna dilute some of the gunk that usually builds up inside of these things, mostly a little bit of oxidation as well. But just by doing this, and ideally this also would be, I would have used contact cleaner, but the only thing I have right now is alcohol, so just play with it a little bit back and forth, to try to just some elbow grease to try to intake any solid parts that are still in their place. I'm gonna put just another drop and that's it. So just play with it a little bit back and forth, that's it. So I'm just blowing a little bit of air on it, just with my mouth, just to try and accelerate the drying of the alcohol. I'm just gonna put this back in place now, making sure that it's in the right position. As you can see, the markings that are on the outside, and I'm gonna screw it back. By the time we assemble this, the alcohol is gonna be mostly evaporated, so there's no need to leave it open like that. Basically that's it. So that's it for now. If you liked this video or if you find it somewhat helpful, please leave a like. If you find this kind of content interesting and are on the lookout for more, please subscribe. There's gonna be more. And yeah, that's it. This was the Electron Age. Bye.